position better than any Western European country to deal on a regional fashion with these countries simply because we've never been involved in these countries before, and we would not especially think to have had any kind of favoritism toward one or the other. Would that be
as a colonial power? You know, the U.S. has never been a colonial power in Africa.
Okay.
Though, you know, during the independence movements in the continent, you know, it played a role in supporting the regimes that wanted to stay naively, you know. So in that sense, we've been involved in Africa, but not, you know, as part of a colonial power.
What we do. Very good.
So in a way, we are more of an independent arbiter, more acceptable probably to some people than those who've been colonial powers before, who still have vested interest in what is happening in those countries. You know, for example, I know that, you know, a lot of the French-speaking countries always under pressure from France not to work with the United States because of what they feel, you know, is U.S. attempts to meddle in their spheres of influence. Exactly. When the West African Economic Community, ECOWAS, was being initiated by General Gowon in Nigeria in the early 70s, the French wanted to block it. Yeah, they kept, you know, telling the French countries, well, Nigeria wants to dominate you all, but not thinking these are all the same people who want to form a union for their own interest. And you are sitting in Paris telling them not to work with their own fellow brothers there. Exactly, that has been the problem. Even in the United Nations. Yeah, the French government pressures the French-speaking, you know, governments not to, you know,
to cooperate.
Exactly, cooperate in what is in the interest of the whole African continent because of the fear of you know, their economic interests.
And so we have that great advantage of not having been a colonial power, and that we really have a clean slate, that we could even make a regional approach that would not be suspect, as it would probably be if one of the other countries were to make such an approach.
Absolutely, and President Obama is better situated than any president in the world, and any past president of the United States to make an impact on the continent now, because people view him as a son of the continent, and now that's what he is.
That's what he is.
That's what he is, because he's directly linked to the continent, not indirectly. You know,
he didn't come over on a slave ship and look back, but
that's correct. He's directly linked to it in blood, you know, because his father is from the Luo ethnic group
and from what I understand, whenever he makes an appearance in Hawaii, in Africa, or whatever, lines are miles and miles long. Everybody trying to, as it was yesterday in Canada, people are simply trying to get out to see him. And so he has a lot of prestige in terms of trying to deal with this specific kind of problem. Is that what we're saying here? Precisely.
You know, he's in a position to become a great transformational leader insofar as the continent of Africa is concerned. You know, you hear of the phrase trade, not aid. Well, you know, what the problem is that you cannot have trade when the partners are unequal, and that's been the problem. So when some of the Western countries are tired, you know, of helping African countries, you know, the past colonial powers, they say, well, trade, not aid. But they forget that most of the continent was devastated the way it is today economically because of their own policies.
That's right.
Of taking, you know, economic resources from Africa without paying for it. Right. Exactly. So when some of the countries in Africa start saying, well, we need a little help here and there, you know, even with our own crops. Also, they say, oh no, it's trade, not aid. Okay? Yeah, that's
been a good excuse for not doing anything, for not fulfill the moral responsibilities that they should have.
That's correct, and they impose high tariffs on African products, so they can't even come in. Okay? You see, and flood the continent with cheaper things, you know. So you see that even the domestic market in Africa cannot function well. So that's one other, you know, economic diplomacy that the Obama administration has to do.
That's mercantilism. We used to call that mercantilism when the colonies and the mother country, but that's the same thing that's going on now in reference to these countries.
Exactly. So there should be an equal, you know.
And so over the last minute, Dr. Madu, you're hopeful in terms of the presidency of Barack Obama in terms of dealing with some of the issues that we've talked about here, that we've been talking about for the last 20 years here.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic because I think he has some good folks in his National Security Council who know about Africa and who've lived there. You know, the Treasury Secretary, Gardner, lived in Africa. And you have Susan Rice, the UN ambassador, who was former Assistant Secretary of State, an African hand, you know. So I think he has a good, Miss Clinton also, he also knows Africa very well. So he's got a good inner
circle that know the truth about Africa. Exactly. And of course, Dr. Madu, let me thank you over the last 10 seconds for coming by and giving us that extra information. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.